Well, hello, good day, everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's Client Enrichment Series presentation on eRETA, GSA's external RWA entry and tracking application. My name is James Fotopoulos. I'm a regional account manager out of Region 6. And more importantly, I am your host for today's edition of the Client Enrichment Series. Before we begin, I want to let everyone know that we are recording today's session. We will post archived Client Enrichment Series videos on YouTube channel. You can access more than 50 past sessions anytime, day or night, and there is a link to our YouTube channel at the end of today's slide deck. Would also like to make you aware of the available GSA resources to assist you and your organization navigating the current pandemic environment and plan to safe return to physical workspaces. On the screen and in your deck are links to GSA's COVID-19 resources page and the Return to Facilities portal website. Both of these are linked directly from the homepage of gsa.gov. Today's presentation will be led by Rachel Bixel, Center for Customer Delivery and GSA PBS Office of Project Delivery, Design Construction. Rachel is an experienced RWA program manager, project manager, and self-professed data nerd. She's enjoys travel, strategy games, and bar trivia. Originally a cheesehead from Madison, Wisconsin, Rachel now lives and works in Chicago. Today, we are spending 90 minutes on all things eRETA. Since the start of fiscal year 2020, eRETA and digital signatures are the mandatory method of submitting work requests and RWA information to here at GSA. And the application gets a good amount of use. GSA accepts approximately 15,000 RWAs each year at a value in excess of $2 billion on behalf of 330 federal agencies and bureaus. This is our eRETA Digest training, which combines elements of our basic and advanced sessions. So whether you're experienced or new, we've got content for you. Rachel will review the full agenda in a moment, but today we will show you how to access and enter data in eRETA, and we'll take a deeper look at amending RWAs and using digital signatures. We have several subject matter experts on hand to answer your questions in the chat. If you'd like to go deep into our previous beginner or advanced sessions or rewatch a combined digest session, you will find our recordings on our YouTube channel as well at gsa.gov/eRETA. We plan to continue offering live eRETA Digest sessions quarterly for the rest of the fiscal year. There are a host of other training materials on that page, including a summarized FAQ document from all previous eRETA training sessions, a user guide, and archive of our monthly quick tips. Before I turn the presentation over to Rachel, I'd like to share a few housekeeping instructions. We have automatically muted your audio to help us control the sound quality of the presentation. If you're new to Zoom, welcome. We have found the Zoom for Government platform to be pretty intuitive and user-friendly. You can customize your view with different pods as you see fit. Speaking of, you will see there is a chat pod as well as a Q&A area. For this session, please use the chat pod for any administrative questions you have or to report any issues you're experiencing, and one of our CES team members can assist you. We've also have a team of eRETA subject matter experts with us today to answer any questions you have during the presentation. We ask that you use the Q&A pod to ask your eRETA questions. Please do not use the raise hand function to ask a question during today's presentation. We want to keep all that dialogue in that Q&A pod. Any questions we're unable to get to today will be noted, and all questions will be answered and posted on gsa.gov/CES. I think we've got a couple of poll questions to pull up. So we're going to launch the poll question into Zoom. And there it is. Is this your first eRETA digital class? Yes or no? You've got a 50-50 chance of answering correctly. All right. I think we're getting a 70-30 split. 30% yes, 30% no. So awesome. Thanks for joining us today. All right, and we've got our next poll question. If you are a returning participant, what areas are you most interested in? Gaining access to eRETA, submitting a new work request, performing a search in eRETA, uploading documents, amending an existing RWA or other. And if it's other, or if you're not seeing the poll question, because sometimes that happens, you can also chat your answer as well. All right, I'm going to say the number one is amending an existing RWA, and the second choice, submitting a new work request. So awesome, you're in the right place. So we'll stop sharing that information. Someone chatted, this is a refresher for them, so good. All right, and I think we have another poll question. I see a third one. What access do you currently have in eRETA? Data entry user, read-only user, which is what I have. I don't have eRETA user ID yet. I was just telling the folks before we started today's presentation, I use the read-only access if I want to know how much is left on RWA, who put the RWA in, who is the GSA PM on our side, has lots of useful information just with the read-only user access. That's probably 1/10 of what this system can do. All right, so 59% said data entry user. So you're far more advanced than I am. So we're going to stop sharing that.
And sorry, James, we have yet one more poll.
We have one more, okay. All right, what access do you currently have? Nope, that's the number 3. There's the 4, there we go. Number of work requests. If you are a data entry user, approximately how many RWA work requests have you sent to GSA and eRETA since eRETA was required in October 2019? And I believe in my intro, I said 15,000 requests a year. So let's see if you're in that number of 15,000 that we do each year here. Okay, it looks like we're split between 1 to 5. And then the second one, kind of a close first. I'm not a data entry user. And maybe you're like me, maybe you just have the read-only access. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for answering those questions, everyone. That's going to help me focus on some very specific parts of this presentation. James, did you have any closing remarks before we move on?
I think that's it. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to get into, first of all, access. So I know that there are a lot of new users today. So we'll talk about how to get into RETA, how to get an account set up. We're going to talk through the actual searches, which is most of the read-only user access. Very useful for what James mentioned about finding out who your PMPOC is, your GSA contact, to get all the questions answered that you have about your projects and services, and then how to search for a lot of information in the system itself. It's got a lot of data in there. Next, we'll look at the progress tracker. So new work requests and RWAs have a little, I like to call it the Domino's pizza tracker, where it says that your pizza is currently being baked with GSA and then goes to the next step, and you get to see every step along that delivery process. And then we'll get into the real meat of how to create a work request and fill out all the portions of it. So that's the part where I'm going to stop sharing the slides. And yes, You will get a copy of the slides after this presentation. They've got very detailed screenshots on there, but I'm going to transition into a live demo. So I'll stop sharing the slides at that point and we'll walk through how to actually get these things into the system. And then at the very end, we're going to talk through the amendments and how to input amendments and what the different codes mean. And I will try to go a little bit faster through the creating a work request portion so that we can spend a little bit more time talking through amendments and any questions you might have based on the poll that you guys filled out. And then we'll have open Q&A, of course, but please feel free to chat your questions into not the chat, interestingly named, but chat them into the Q&A pod. So if you put them in the Q&A pod, we will be able to record that question for later, and it will show up on our questions and answers that we send out and post after the session. Okay, anything that we need to pause on before we continue? Is everything shared okay? You can hear me all right?
Rachel, I think you're doing great.
Okay. Let's jump in. So first of all, getting access to the system. You want to visit gsa.gov/eRETA. So that is the number one thing. Go to gsa.gov/eRETA and click on something that says, how do I access eRETA? And it's going to walk you through the 3 steps. First, you complete an online application. So it's a Google form. There's some other ways if you can't access Google. You would forward your completed account request form to your supervisor and have them send that to eRETA.gov with a statement affirming your request for access. So we want to make sure that whoever is getting access to the system is both a government employee and has a need to know this information and has the okay from their supervisory staff that they are allowed to get whatever kind of access they should have. And then you're going to get an email from eRETA with a couple other instructions just to confirm your account. Once you actually have access, we've got the direct link here for getting logged in, and there'd be a sign in at the top of the screen. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. And then any training materials are also on that eRETA page. And of course, if you can't find what you're looking for, you can always contact us. So we're going to have a list of various contacts at the end of the training slides as well, in case you want to go somewhere quite specific. So let's look at this real quick. So here's that page. Hopefully you can still see my screen with the eRETA RWA customer portal listed at the top. It's on our overall RWA page. So here on the left, if you're on a mobile device, it might be up at the top. It'll say eRETA RWA customer portal. It'll have eRETA training materials and how do I access eRETA? So you'd click on that, how do I access? And it's going to have the steps there. So here's your link. You fill out the form, you send it in, you get confirmed. Pretty easy. It usually takes less than a day. Or less than 24 hours, I should say. Pretty quick. eRETA training materials also on here. Highly encourage looking through these. They are quite specific. They have screenshots of every step of the process. We will be updating them periodically to match any changes in the system. But those are very, very useful for submitting new work requests and submitting amendments. If you want a step-by-step walkthrough of the process with every possible scenario, that is the one for you. Okay. All right. The process overall. So the work request RWA process is how GSA takes in new work for our customers. So RWAs, if you're unfamiliar with RWAs in general, are the services or projects which are above standard. So we lease space to other federal agencies, and there is a baseline amount of services included in that lease or that occupancy agreement. And then for anything that you want to do above and beyond that, say you want to renovate your space, put in new carpet, maybe you want after hours overtime utilities type of thing, that's where you would give GSA and RWA. So an RWA is a form of interagency agreement. So you might be used to a different format. The 7600B from Treasury would be one form of that. For our Department of Defense people, a MIPR is another form of an interagency agreement. The RWA is the interagency agreement that has been approved for GSA to use. So that is what we use. Everything goes through a system to go through this process. So it's going to start at the top with pre-planning, where you as a customer are going to enter your information into our eRETA system, send it to GSA. We're going to assign a contact. So we're going to give you a point of contact to work with. That is usually a project manager or a building manager who will assist you with estimating, scoping, scheduling, all the planning parts of that particular scope of work. So it's going to take us up to generally 5 business days to get you a PMPOC. That may be a little longer if you've got a really big project and we need to find a very dedicated resource for you, but it usually happens pretty fast. Once we're in that planning phase, that's where you're going to work with that PMPOC through email, phone calls, meetings to define what the work is, your very specific work to meet the recording statute for all you appropriation law nerds out there, and develop your bona fide need. So if you're interested in all the policy stuff, that is a different training that is coming soon, and I'm sure that we can provide more information on that. So just FYI, today we're going through the system and not really the rules behind all of our process, but we do offer training for that as well. So our policy and process class will be coming. Keep an eye out for that. It might even be posted in the CES website already. But anyway, back to the eRETA process. So we're going to put it in the system. You guys are working through the details. Once we reach the end of those details, we've got it figured out. We know how much it's going to cost. GSA is going to put an estimate into the system. So we're going to create an eRETA cost estimate and link it to your work request. The time that takes is very dependent on what the project is. We could never commit to a certain time for that. So keep that in mind. It will completely vary depending on what your project is. And once we link that estimate, it's going to send you a notice. It'll tell you, hey, the estimate's been linked. Go ahead, go into the system and enter the remainder of your information. Put your money onto the document. Put your accounting details onto the document. So that's where you do some amount of work. It's going to hang out there until you're really ready to fund it. So that first part is all planning. There is a lot that goes into that. And it's all, there's not a lot of, I don't want to say there's no rules associated with it, but appropriation law stuff doesn't apply to any of that first part. And so we really encourage you to put those work requests into the system as soon as you have an idea. If you know that you need a service, you think you might need a service, put it into the system. That's how we are able to get you the POC and get you an estimate. Without you putting it into the eRETA system, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get GSA to do that kind of service for you. Once we get to the end of planning, however, so now we're down here. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but you've put your money to it. You've decided you're going to fund it. GSA is going to take up to around 15 business days, so 3 weeks to collect all the remaining information, get it reviewed through a bunch of internal tiers, and then route it for signature. You are going to sign it first, and then GSA is going to sign it second. So it gets routed for signature first to you as a customer, and then to GSA. So when it is fully accepted and signed, GSA will send you an acceptance letter. That acceptance letter says the interagency agreement, the RWA, is now formally accepted. The funding is obligated on GSA's side. It should be obligated on your side at that point as well. So that's when everything is good and ready to go. And now we're actually going to move forward with contracting for that work. So that's what our eRETA system facilitates. This entire process happens step by step, facilitated by that system, making sure that we don't run into any data errors, that we're completing everything to appropriation law and RWA policy standards. It helps us immensely. So before eRETA existed, it was kind of much more of a mess. Now it's a very regimented process. Okay, so that was a lot on just the process, the general overall process. I'm going to move on unless there's anything we need to verbalize. Check the Q&A real quick. Looks like everybody is answering those questions already. So I'm going to move on. Okay, so in the eRETA system, there are a whole bunch of interesting standard features that I want to highlight just on one slide, and we'll go through them as we go as well. Blue words, anything that's blue and underlined is a hyperlink. It's going to open up a glossary with the definition. Very handy. Magnifying glass, this little symbol here, helps you to do a more detailed drill down search. So it's going to open up a separate screen and show you, hey, you were trying to look for an accounting code, your treasury account symbol. Here's how you can drill down search for that. Look for a component or a keyword. You can look for it in detail. Anything that has a red asterisk means that the field is required. There is a button on almost every search screen that says export to Excel file. That's going to allow you to download all of the data by clicking that button, and it'll give you a lot more data than what's actually showing on the screen at that time. So that's a really nice way to export a whole bunch of data and then filter it, work with it in whatever way you want. Yellow links. At the bottom of each RWA, once you open it up, there are a bunch of yellow links that take you to the different parts of that RWA. So the RWA history, the financial information, all of the documentation. So the uploaded letters, the uploaded estimates, the schedules, all those PDF documents that got attached, comments, and then the estimate tracking number. So that's the linked eRETA estimate tracking number is what ETN stands for. So that section is at the bottom of every RWA. And then within any particular screen, there are tabs. So documents, comments, active audit history. That's all just within one particular section. So that's the documentation audit section. That's going to appear up top for some. And then on the left, you're going to have the navigation of the different tabs within a certain screen. So this is kind of a lot in one screen. We're going to show you this live very soon. Just wanted to give you the heads up that there are a bunch of standard features which help you navigate to other parts and do very specific searches. Okay. Search tips and tricks. I'm going to launch into a live demo in just a moment. So this is what the main search screen looks like. It's got a whole bunch of fields. The thing I want to stress here is that less is more. If you enter information that says, I want to get an RWA in GSA's Region 3, I want to look at GSA's Region 3 RWAs, which you may not be familiar, but that's essentially over on the East Coast. And then you also say that you want to find the RWAs for Region 3 that are for Alaska. Those two things won't exist at the same time. So you're not going to have a Region 3 RWA that is also in Alaska. And so that will result in nothing showing up on your search. There's a whole bunch of Region 3 RWAs. There's a whole bunch of Alaska RWAs, but they do not overlap. And so whenever you search for things in eRETA, it's only going to find the scenarios in which all your search criteria overlaps. So less is more. Okay, I'm going to go into the system now. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to do a little transition here. Please bear with me. Okay, hopefully now you're seeing the eRETA screen. So this is the landing page after having logged in. Search, data entry, financial review, documentation, estimates. So you see these sections here at the top. This is navigating between different parts of the system. There's searches under all parts of it. They search the same data. It just gives a slightly different view of it. And then once you click into it, you can navigate between them. This dashboard here shows your updates. If there's anything in the system that we've posted as an update, it's going to show up here. And it'll show what you're logged in as. So this is our test system. So anything you see today is all going to be not real. I assure you, these are not actually happening in real time. This is our test data. So I am logged in as an external data entry user. All right. I'm going to go right into the search. So again, less is more. I'm going to make this just a little wider here. Hopefully this is okay. Hopefully you can see all of that. So searching in eRETA. If you want to search for a specific work request or RWA number, that is the best way to do it. So as you're looking through the system, that is the unique identifier that's going to get you the most information, the most detailed specific information. Otherwise, you can search by all sorts of other data. We're going to search for a certain type of RWA that is currently accepted. We'll search for just one customer group here, and we'll try to find stuff that is, let's do that example of Region 3. So I searched by a few different types of information. I've got accepted N-type RWAs for the judiciary in Region 3, and I only got one result. Just one. So now you'll see how the less is more works. I'm going to remove some of those and search for all judiciary RWAs in Region 3, regardless of status or RWA type. Now I get 17. I get a lot more of them. And if I were to just remove Region 3, or rather have all regions, I get 402. So less is more if you want to find all the data that you really want. If you are searching for something very specific, you got to know that you're filtering things out when you add more data. Okay. The magnifying glass feature, I want to show you what that looks like. I hope that this shows the pop-up screen. James, would you be able to tell me if that pop-up screen appeared?
I'm not seeing that
Okay.
pop-up screen.
All right, I'm gonna reshare my screen here. To give me everything. Okay, so now you should be able to see it. So if I click this little icon right here,
There you go.
pops up. All right. So this is building number. You as customers may not know what the building number is. You probably aren't familiar with exactly what GSA assigns as a building number. You haven't memorized them like some of us have. And so you're going to need to look for which one it might be. So you can search by a building name, you can search the address, you can narrow it down just by city and state. So let's look for maybe things in Boston. So here I'm going to get a list of all the GSA buildings, either leased or owned locations in Boston. I've got 3 pages of them. If I wanted to search for something very specific, I know the building in Chicago, the courthouse, I just typed it in and it there's only one result, so it gave me that building number. I searched for just the first 3 letters of that building name, I know is Dirksen. It's going to give me anything that has DIR in it, so I could select any of those. So this is a really handy way, that little magnifying glass, to find specific information that you may not know. Okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing just the one.
And Rachel, I wanted to remind everyone, since this is a big crowd, make sure to put all your questions in that Q&A pod so we can track them, we can answer them within the pod itself, and it's a lot easier to keep track of. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. So once you do have some sort of set of data that you'd like to look at, you can click the Export to Excel button, which is right here. And that is going to download a set of data, which will have a lot more information than what is just displayed down below. So I'm not going to open it up right now. It'll be a lot of information. Each search up here, search versus financial review versus documentation, they all work essentially the same way, but they're going to give you a slightly different view in that download of data. All right, let's get into the tracker. So let's clear this out. Don't want any data. We are going to find something which is in pending status. I'll show you what that looks like. So on this particular RWA, here's what it looks like once you actually click into one of those results. It's going to show you the base information, those tabs on the left, which navigate you to the different parts of that particular RWA, the links at the bottom, which take you to even more sections. And then if you scroll over to the right, you got the little Domino's pizza tracker. So this particular RWA is awaiting action from GSA. So it's got a little bubble here, which says what all of those things mean. Depending on what it says, it could be waiting for customer action, could be waiting for GSA headquarters action, but it shows you where it is in the process. So it's going to progress from pre-planning, unassigned, planning estimate, pending new, signature requested customer, signature requested GSA, and finally accepted. So just like that more colorful version that we went through earlier, it's going to show you what step of the process that particular RWA is in. So this one is pending new. So GSA is in the process of reviewing it, accepting it, and then we will route it for signature. Okay. Let's see what else. I'm just checking my notes, make sure I hit on all the highlights here.
Hey, Rachel, is it possible to zoom out? I think we're too close.
Zoom out?
Yeah, we're just seeing just a portion of the system.
Is that better?
Maybe adjust the there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
I'll probably zoom back in. I'm
That's
not sure
okay.
how my eyes are a little bit tired when things get that small. I'm sure other people
And
are.
just to remind the folks online, if you raise your hand, unfortunately, because of the size of the group that we have, if you have a question, go to that Q&A pod. That is your friend today. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. Okay, so this progress tracker shows up for new RWAs. It does not show up for amendments. Very sorry. We hope to add that feature at some point, but right now it just shows up for new RWAs. Okay, let's get into creating a work request. So we showed you the searches. There's something here called data entry. So if you are a read-only user, you're not going to have this feature. You will only be able to do data entry if you have data entry access. So you could either create a new work request or modify an existing work request. So we're going to create new. And here's where I'm going to zoom back in just a little bit. Hopefully that's about right. New work request. So if you notice, we've got nothing in here yet. Nothing is filled out except for one thing because I'm logged in as Administrative Office of the Courts. Again, if there are any AO people online, thank you for letting me pretend to be you for a day. This is all fake. This is not real. Nothing in here actually happens in the real system. This is all just the testing system. So up here, no information, no work request number. So we're going to fill this out. So I'm going to keep with that AO. We're going to look for something in, I am going to search. I'm going to search for a specific building number here. In just a second. Probably didn't show up. I'm going to find the Boston one. All right. One Not Shore Terrace in, who knows, Boston, Massachusetts. All right, so filling in the building number. Any specific location in the facility. I'm going to say this is room 306. Request category. So as I mentioned before, anything in here that has a blue link is going to give you a glossary definition. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger and share my whole screen again so that you can see what happens when I click the glossary definition here. It's going to bring up a pop-up box which shows us what the definition is. So if you're wondering what the heck do they want me to input for request category, I don't know what any of these words mean. You can look at the glossary. So non-severable, severable, overtime utilities, severable cleaning maintenance, property disposal, and property disposal multi-agency training. So PBS works exclusively with, or mostly with these three categories: non-severable, severable overtime, and severable cleaning maintenance. So the difference is that non-severable is for anything that's a project. So that's all your design and construction, security, furniture, all that sort of stuff. Severable is for those services, those things that recur over time, overtime utilities, regular cleaning, regular recurring preventative maintenance, snow removal, landscaping, things like that. If you're talking a project though, non-severable. And if you get it wrong, it's okay. We'll figure it out over time. But that is going to help us figure out where to direct your request. So if you put in non-severable, you're going to probably get a project manager. If you put in severable, you're probably going to get a building manager as your POC from GSA. Estimated fiscal year needed. This is the time when you think you're actually going to fund this request. So it's either now or sometime in the future. So we're going to select current. Estimated amount. We're not actually asking you to do a detailed government estimate, but give us an idea of how big this request is. Again, it's going to help us route it to the right people. So we're going to pretend that this is around 50,000, 250,000. And then put in who you are or who that POC should be for your agency. So you, as a data entry user, might not actually be your agency's POC. You might put in a facilities contact here, somebody who works with projects on a regular basis and doesn't actually do data entry into a system. It could be the same person, it could not be the same person. So we're going to put in me. I'm going to type in my email address here. If that contact already exists in the system, it will pop up with all their information. If they do not exist in the system yet, then you will be asked to fill out the required fields to set up a new contact. Okay. And then we're going to enter a description of requirements. Entering a good description of requirements is very important. The more detail that you can put in here early, the better. Eventually, when you go to accept this as an RWA, this particular field is going to need to be quite detailed to meet all those appropriation laws. If you want to know more about how to write a really good description of requirements, please attend that policy and process training that we're going to be offering. For now, for that initial work request, it could be vague, but please, we beg of you, put in something specific enough for us to know where to start. Otherwise, we'll just reach out to you and ask that in email, and we will help you describe this in more detail. So I'm going to enter what I think is a pretty good one right now. We're going to say this is for a space refresh for a new judge. Design, M&I, and construction for carpet and paint and a lighting system upgrade in, we'll say, approximately 1,000 square feet. Throughout. Sweet, I can't spell. It's got spell check. 306. Let's see, what else? What other requirements could we put in here? Oh, to meet the court's design guide. And be real specific, does not include furniture or personal property. Sound good? Sound like a real project? Sounds like a real project to me. Okay. So I'm going to show you that, first of all, it's not going to let me save unless I have all the required fields filled out. And I'm going to highlight again that this does not have a work request or RWA number yet, but if I hit that save button, first of all, it's going to tell me a request category is required. So let's do that again. And now if I hit save, ta-da, there's a number up here. And there's also a pop-up, an annoying little pop-up that serves a very important purpose. So it's telling you that this work request is only saved and that you haven't sent it to GSA yet. Very, very important. So there's a phase where you can create a work request just for your own purposes, just for your own tracking. GSA is not involved yet. You do not want us to assign a contact. You do not want us to bug you about what the details are. You only want to set it up so that you can talk internally with your own folks about whether you want A or B or something or another. You don't want to be bothered and have to go to meetings with GSA because we're trying to figure out what you want to do. GSA is not involved. So that's what this pop-up says. It says, I'm not involving GSA yet unless I hit this submit request button. So only then will it send it to GSA. So it's just making sure that you understand that this is not going to GSA quite yet. It's just in pre-planning status. So you hit okay. Okay, it's just pre-planning, just me thinking about it. So now, if you want to send it to GSA, you hit the submit request button, and that will route it to a person who will assign it to a POC. So this is also now telling you, another annoying pop-up, that this is not an RWA, nor does it guarantee acceptance of a future RWA. It's just getting you a POC and the commitment to work through the planning phase of this work. So once you submit it, you're going to get a POC. We will walk you through the process, but this does not mean that this is an RWA. It does not mean that we will accept the RWA in the future. It just means that you're getting a point of contact. Then it's got a little note for late fiscal year submissions and the fact that we have a fiscal year end deadline for new requests, and that submitting this does not constitute a fully executable RWA. We'll be sending out a letter about what that date is in the coming months. All right, that is saving. And it's confirmed. So now this work request has been submitted to GSA. We will contact you with somebody who's going to be your point of contact. And it's got a little prompt if you want to upload documents, where to go. So notice the status has now changed. It was pre-planning and now it is unassigned. So that means a contact from GSA has not yet been assigned. So GSA is going to take about 5 days, usually less, to put a PM POC in down here. If you want to view the receipt that you actually sent it to GSA, you can go to the documentation section. And scroll down, and there's going to be a document in here, an automatic letter, which test system, again, this did not actually get sent. A letter that downloads, and you may this may look familiar to some of you. That the work request has been sent to GSA. Here is the information. Here is who the POC is and what the general scope is, and that GSA is going to assign someone. So once we assign someone, you will get an email saying that we've assigned someone and that and who they are, and be able to work with them through the process. So I'm going to pause for just a second, take a drink of water, check my notes, make sure that we've hit on everything. Recalibrate here.
And Rachel, we did have some folks that were saying the we told you to zoom out, and now you might need to zoom in on some of the things. But there is a way when you're in Zoom. There are a couple things that you can do to make your screen bigger. There's the view option in Zoom. I know there's a couple options you can play with. If you're like me and you have another screen that's a little bit bigger than your laptop, you can screen grab and move it over to that other screen, the bigger one. That helps too. So Rachel, when you reshare, we'll take a look and see if it's readable or not.
Thank you. Yeah, please interrupt me, James, if it is a little small again. or if you need anything.
Sure.
Okay. All right, how's it look?
Maybe just one more bump on that screen. That might help.
Bigger? Okay.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our unassigned work request here and show you some of the status. And I understand this, you can't see the whole thing, but I'd rather stay zoomed in. So the progress tracker over here, you can see that it's now in unassigned. Once it gets progressed to the next stages, that'll change. So you are now in read-only mode. It says it up here, you are in read-only mode. So in order to edit it again, if you wanted to take a look at it, you would click this edit button. So that edit button allows you to change anything on it. Say you just submitted it to GSA and realized that you put in the wrong location, or you misspelled something, anything you want, you can go change it. GSA will be just fine with that. So you can edit it. And now if you want to get out of edit mode, if you want to get out of edit mode, you would click read only view. So some people get a little confused with the fact that it says read only view up here. They think that they are in read only view and they want to edit things. You're actually in edit mode at this point. So if you click read only view, it will take you into read only view. Again, you're in read only mode now and you want to edit it, you click the pencil. So read only view versus edit mode. Okay. And now we are going to get into the rest of it. So just like a cooking show, where they show you how to make the first part. And then they've got one that's fully baked. I've got one that's fully baked. Ta-da! All right, so this is one that has been assigned to a GSA PMPOC. Oh, look, it's me. So it's progressed from unassigned to planning estimate. It's the same scope of work. This is just the same thing we just input. It's been assigned and there is now an estimate linked to it. So you can also find that down here. So if we want to go look at that estimate, we can click that yellow link. ETN stands for estimate tracking number. And that's going to show us the estimate. So it's going to have the cost broken down between construction, design, M&I. I think that's all we had in here. We did not have any other project costs. We had no furniture or personal property, no other categories. So it shows all of those costs. The sum of those direct costs is 210 here. And then there is an RWA management fee that gets applied. If you want to know more about how the fees work or what the fees are, you can attend our policy and process training class coming up soon. Off to the right, again, I know I'm zoomed in. Off to the right, you can see the cost estimate summary. It's just got those categories all summed up and it shows you the total. So at any point, if you're thumbing through this, you can see that as well. So we're in the estimate. Yellow links still exist, so I can go right back to that RWA. So this work request RWA is partially completed. So we filled out that first part. GSA did their magic on the back end. They assigned a person. We talked through all the details. GSA got you an estimate. Now it's time to actually put money on it. So what do we do? So we are going to go into edit mode and fill out the remainder of the information. So nothing here on this first, make this just a little bigger again. Nothing here on this first page has changed. It's all the same. So we're going to save and proceed. That'll take you to the next tab of the RWA, but you could also click up here. So again, navigate through with the tabs. We're going to fill in our billing information. So this tells GSA where to send the bill. We're going to go with non-IPAC. And then again, codes which you may not know. So we're going to look up a code and see if we can search it. And I have to share. I'm going to zoom in and share my entire screen again. So we're going to look up what that code might be. So again, it's going to bring up a pop-up screen and allow you to search by all sorts of information. So it's already got the agency bureau code filled out because that is limited. You have to go with whatever yours is. So we're going to just hit search. I didn't enter any other information. I am looking for what is the billing address. So this is going to be based on where your billing address sits. If you are an IPAC customer, this might not be as interesting, but for non-IPAC customers where you actually get a bill, you might get a paper bill sent to one of these locations. It's a little bit more important. So this is your billing office information. You would select one. I've got one favorited here. So notice that star on the left is a favorite. So if you find one that you like, you could favorite it just by clicking that star. So what that does is gives you a short list. So I'm going to look back over here for a second. So on this main page, it's got a little star there. I'll show you what that looks like. So if you were to just click the star, it's going to bring up what your favorites are. So if you have something that you've found before that you like and you want to save it for later use, you can favorite it. Unfavorite that. So I'm going to select this one that I favorited, just click on it, and it's going to fill out the rest of the information here. So automatically filled it out with the address. Other very important part on this page is the agency certified amount. This should match whatever the estimate is. So if it doesn't match, it'll show up red like that. So to get it to match, you can just copy and paste it. Pretty easy. If for some reason you think this amount is wrong, so say GSA provided you with an estimate and you just go, you know what, $233,000, I just can't afford that. I need to maybe tweak things. I need to tweak my scope, maybe not do that lighting upgrade we talked about. I want GSA to redo the estimate for me. You would go back to GSA, talk to your PMPOC and have them update the estimate. If you try to enter something different, if you say, well, I really think this should only cost $100, it's not going to let you do it. So eventually it'll stop you. It'll tell you that you can't submit the RWA for that value because it doesn't match the estimate. It has to match whatever the estimate is. So if you need the estimate changed, please talk to your GSA PMPOC. So we're just going to make that estimate value the same as the agency certified amount. So this is the total value on the RWA, how much you're certifying the RWA for. So we're going to click Save and Proceed. Now the accounting. So this is where you can break it out. For the most part, customers have just one accounting line for that entire RWA, but if you wanted to, you could have multiple. So we're going to click Add and search for some sort of accounting. So I don't know what my treasury account symbol is. I don't know what format it needs to be in. Again, we've got both favorites, which will give us a short list, and we've got that search function. So this search function is really helpful. It's got a lot of great information here about the formatting. If you think you know the number and it just isn't working, something's messing you up, you can click into this and try to figure out what that formatting is because it's very specific. So highlight, if you have Know Your Funding, if you're blessed with magical unicorn Know Your Funding, it does have 8 spaces in there in order to meet the treasury component format that's required to report. So it is quite specific. All right, so using this drill down search, we're going to search for stuff that's available this fiscal year, current fiscal year. It's going to have your agency code filled out already. I can click that search. Doesn't look like anything happened, but if I scroll down now, there's a bunch of results. So keep that in mind, this search screen, you got to scroll. So you'd look here, it's going to have descriptions for everything. It'll have other information that your budget folks will be able to help you with if you're confused. We don't actually know what some of this information means to you, so you'd have to ask your internal budget folks. But we do have it listed here, so you can search through it and talk through that with them. So I'm going to select this first one here. That's going to give me my treasury account symbol and the full beautiful format with all the information associated with it. So it's an annual fund, the expiration of obligational authority, meaning the last date that I as a customer or you as a customer is allowed to obligate that for a new purpose is that date. Again, if you're confused and you don't know what this means or why that date deadline is there, you can click on the glossary and it's going to describe it to you. The authorized line amount. So as I said before, our agency certified amount is the full amount of the RWA, but you might not want to fund that entire amount with this one line. So let's say this is $100,000. And then you enter whatever other information you want to show up. And now you can see that this amount and this amount are not quite the same. They do have to match. So your total summary of all the funding lines that you have has to match the agency certified amount, the full amount on the RWA. So I can add another one. If I were to try to add the same accounting code, let's just select that same one here. For another, I guess, 130, let's just do this, copy, paste, minus 100,000. If I try to save that same line, it will save it as long as my information here is different. So if you want to split it up even between the same treasury account symbol, you can. So now we've got two amounts that both match. So we're going to be good. Click save and proceed. Fund certifying official. This is the person who is going to sign the RWA on behalf of your agency. So this may be the person who is the POC for the customer. They may be the facilities person. They may not. They may be a budget official. They may be the head of your agency. This is something that internal to your agency, you would determine who has the authority to sign for that fund and enter their email address. That particular person does not need to have an eRETA account to sign RWAs. They do not sign it in eRETA directly. They actually sign it via DocuSign. So they get an email telling them that they need to, that they can sign it through DocuSign. So it's all very secure, recorded in that way. It is not through eRETA, though it's initiated by eRETA. So we just need to know who is that person. I'm going to cheat and put myself in again. Add update. It's going to fill my information out. So what that will do is send me an email telling me to go sign through DocuSign. So again, whoever signs the RWA does not need access to eRETA. They can if they want to, but the signature will not happen in the system. It will happen through DocuSign. If you want to upload any other documents at this point, you can do that. Otherwise, this is where you actually send it to GSA. So I mentioned earlier about the end of fiscal year deadlines and the time. So GSA needs time to actually process stuff at the end of the year. We need time to review everything, to record it on our books, and then you need time to record it on your books. This is the magic button that makes sure you've met that deadline. Unless you hit this send to GSA button, you have not provided a fully executable RWA to GSA. Once you hit this button, then it will record that you've sent it, and it will record, it'll have a little receipt in the documentation section. It'll have an email. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So we're going to send it to GSA. It's going to check everything. See if I made any mistakes. If I did, it'll tell me. Nope, I'm all good. Okay, so it tells me that the fund certifying official email has been captured and that they will get an email to sign. So now, let's scroll back over to our section here. It still says planning estimate. So it looks very similar, but you can also see in the documentation when it's been sent. So there is a receipt. So here's an email that says customer request for RWA acceptance. Open that one up. So this is directed to GSA. It tells them that you sent the RWA in and they need to review it and process it. To you, this is you as a customer, you do not need to take any additional action at this time. GSA is going to work on everything. Here's the information. So this is your receipt that you actually submitted the RWA. So at the end of the year, when you're wondering, did I really do it? Did we meet the deadline? This is what needs to happen by that deadline. All right, I'm going to pause a second and check my notes again here.
I'm going to give Rachel here about 10 seconds, but just want to thanks folks for putting your questions in the Q&A pod. I think we're up to over maybe close to 60 questions in that Q&A pod. Either they've been answered, they're in the process of being answered, or they're in line. So keep using that Q&A pod. Appreciate it. And let's see, it looks like we've got about 15 minutes to go, Rachel.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, I think I have hit on everything here. I am going to show you just for a second what it looks like for the digital signatures. Hopefully you can see my screen here with the slides. So the digital signatures show up via an email that looks something like this. It goes to the person who was indicated to sign the RWA, and it tells them to review the document. It says RWA and where it is. It's going to come from an email address that is DocuSign specific. And then once they open that up in DocuSign, again, not in eRETA, but in DocuSign, it will look like the form. So the GSA form 2957, which is the RWA, it'll have all the information in there for them to review, and it'll have a little thing that says click to sign. So they would just sign it and click the finish button. So it's really, really easy to sign those RWAs. So if you've got heads of agency who are signing, it's really easy for them. They do not need to go into eRETA. They do not need to have an eRETA account. They can sign via email in DocuSign. They can even do it from their mobile device. So it's much easier than you might think. So we've got another poll, James. We could bring this up.
Sure.
Hopefully I've stressed this enough.
All right, so our question is, do you need an eRETA user ID to digitally sign an RWA? I think you've got the cheat code on that one.
This is a poll of were you listening?
Exactly. So
Well, that's great.
I'm
Looks
gonna
like
say everybody said no.
most people were listening. The correct answer was no. You do not need an eRETA user ID to digitally sign an RWA. It is done through DocuSign. And another question, I mentioned it earlier. I'm not sure if I stressed it enough, but we'll stress it here.
Does my agency need to have dedicated funding set aside for a project or a service before I can submit a work request in eRETA to GSA?
Remember, a work request is that first part where you're getting a GSA PM POC assigned.
And I think the favorite is no.
Correct. No is the correct answer. You do not need dedicated funding. So that first part that, hey, we just have an idea of a project or a service that we might need. I don't even know where the money's coming from yet. Go ahead and send that in. It'll get us the documentation required to start planning it. And then when you do have funding available, you'll be able to do that second part that I just showed, where you fill out your funding information and send it to GSA. So part one, work request. Just that, who are you? What are you trying to do? We'll work through the details in the meantime. So you do not need the dedicated funding to do part one. You only need funding for part two, where you're actually gonna get the RWA recorded. Okay, input codes, amendments. With 15 minutes to go, we are going to talk through the different amendment codes. So whenever you're in RETA and you've got an accepted RWA and you want to change something about it, you will be asked to select an input code. So you would hit that little pencil, that little edit button, and then the first thing that's here is a drop down, and you cannot do anything else. You can't edit anything until you select one of these 4 codes and hit the apply button. That's going to affect what you are able to edit, and it will affect whether or not it actually needs to be routed to anybody for signature. So for example, the most straightforward one, the one highlighted here, is the administrative change in input code. That's going to help you change anything you want within the system within reason that just doesn't even need GSA's review. It just saves directly into the system. There are no signatures involved. It doesn't get routed to GSA for any kind of action. You just get to update it and it changes what is recorded. X input code, on the other hand, is the opposite of that. That is the most change. That is changing all sorts of stuff. It might be a scope change, it might be an amount change, and it is the most commonly used one. H input code changes your billing information, so that maybe your billing address or how often you're going to bill, stuff like that. And then N input code is for cancellation or early completion. So if you decided you have an accepted RWA and you don't need the service anymore, maybe we're only halfway through it and something changed, you need it to be canceled so that you can get that money back. That would be an N input code. There's a list of all the different things that you can edit under certain ones on our gsa.gov/eRETA website. So it's a table that shows which things are editable under different input codes. E input code, that administrative one, the most common thing to change is the line to bill. Well, I guess most common might actually be your POC. So if your POC changes, you might want to update that so we know who to contact. It's a very common problem that we encounter when we're trying to follow up on things and we don't know who works there anymore. But the other common thing is the line to bill. So if you've entered more than one accounting code, you may want to see a particular accounting code show up on the next bill that GSA sends you. So that line to bill feature is a radio button over here. And you simply select which one you want to show up. So if you enter an e-input code and change it, you would hit save and proceed and submit it to our financial system, which is Pegasus. So when you submit that, it's going to change which line shows up on your bill. There are not any signatures involved. It does not change any financial information about how much is authorized on the RWA or what the scope is or anything like that. It just shows which accounting code is showing up on your next bill. The X input code, updating the RWA amount or the scope or anything major that would require review and signatures. Remember that you have to update the value in more than one place. So you would update the total amount of the RWA on the billing information tab, and it has to match that estimate value. So if GSA has provided you a new estimate, which says, hey, here's the new amount that something happened, you added something changed, here's the new amount, you have to match that new amount. And then on the accounting details page, you would need to change how much is allocated to each line. So this is necessary in all instances, even more necessary when you have more than one accounting line. Very important to update the authorized line amount so that it matches your total agency certified amount. The little buttons on the right-hand side are kind of funny. They are intended to be an edit button, and it's supposed to look like a little hand holding a pencil. So that's what that is. It's a little hand holding a pencil to edit, and then the X is to delete that particular accounting line. So if you were to try to delete it, it would give you a pop-up and say, are you sure you know what you're doing? And if you did something you didn't like, you could just not save it and just go to a different tab, go back and not save it. You can always undo. If you want to add a new line, again, we just go through just what we did before to add a new accounting line to indicate how much you want allocated to that line. Final amendment feature is the amendment summary screen. So once you've filled out information and you've clicked through everything, so click, save and proceed, you're going to get to an amendment summary, and it's going to show you a before and after view of what changed. So here you can see that the agency POC has changed from one person to another. The agency mailbox has changed from one person to another, and the room number has been entered. So the initial one had nothing in it, and now it says 3rd floor. So anything that you change will show up highlighted in blue, and it'll have a little symbol next to it just to display exactly what changed. And that is viewable afterwards as well. You can go to that amendment summary screen to view every amendment and what changed on each amendment. And GSA will not be able to take action until you've hit that send to GSA button. So very important when doing amendments. Once you start amending something, the status is going to change to mod initiated, meaning you as a customer have initiated a modification, but you haven't actually finished it yet. When something is in mod initiated status, GSA is locked out of it. We can't touch it. So if there is another change that we need to make or you've asked us to make, we won't be able to do that until you either delete your modification or send it to us for review. So keep that in mind. If you are putting something into mod initiated status, you have locked GSA out from being able to edit it. We can still use the RWA, but just in its previous accepted version. Once you hit that send to GSA button, it is going to go into mod requested status. And so we will start reviewing and going through that. Okay, we've got another poll. Keep you on your toes here.
All right, so the question is, as a result of today's session, how much more comfortable are you using eRETA to submit an RWA information to GSA? You can either answer much more comfortable, somewhat more comfortable, or I still need more training, which is okay.
There's a lot.
All right, looks like 50% are much more comfortable. And then a short second, somewhat more comfortable. So we're doing good.
Excellent. Good to hear. All right. So here at the end, I've got a list of resources for questions. So if you have eRETA questions, specific info about basically everything we went through in this training, how to use the system, what buttons to press, why it won't let you into certain places, there is a slew of information at eRETA, at our eRETA website. Also, if you have system questions, very specific things, trouble, you can email ereta@gsa.gov. And we have an amazing group who answers all those questions pretty fast, very accurately. They're awesome. If you have a RWA specific question just about policy and process, again, I'll plug that training. We've got training coming up. Please see the CES website. But we also have so much data and help at our RWA website, gsa.gov/RWA. If you have a specific question, you can go to email askrwa@gsa.gov. And if you go to the wrong place or email the wrong person, we'll get you to the right place. So don't worry about that. If you do have a very specific project question about where is my estimate, when is my project going to start, why is somebody putting covering on my windows right now, you can contact your GSA PM POC listed on the RWA. So again, that person is, I'll show you again. That person is located right right here, GSA PM POC. That is the best person to contact for any kind of questions about what is going on your project or service. And the RWA manager, of course. So our RWA managers are split up by different GSA regions. So if you're not sure what region you're in, it's usually based on state. So you can see here on this handy dandy map, which is also available on our website.
All right, Rachel, I think, I'm not sure what the record is for questions, but we've got at least, I would say, close to 80 questions that have either been answered, they're in process to being answered. So we'll definitely post answers to your questions. If you didn't get it today, you'll see a FAQ document here shortly posted to our website. Rachel, do you have any parting words before I close this out?
No, thank you for everyone for attending. Please attend that RWA policy and process fundamentals training. If you're unfamiliar with RWAs, it is really important, not just to know how to use the system, but how to comply with appropriation law, because it is all of our responsibility to do that. So GSA is here to help with that. And we'll be giving training in May and July. And we'll be repeating this session June 6th. So if it was in one ear and out the other, come back on June 6th.
Well, thanks, Rachel. I'd like to thank you for a great presentation as always. Sorry you were stuck with me as a host, but I'm sure in future eRETA Digest, you'll see different folks hosting this. But thank you, and thank all of our clients that joined us today. We will post formal written responses to the questions and comments you posted in our chat pane as a frequently asked questions document for future reference on our website at gsa.gov/CES and on the eRETA website at gsa.gov/eRETA. And of course, as Rachel mentioned, we do have some upcoming client enrichment series sessions. We've got that RWA policy process fundamentals on May 23rd, June 6th, the eRETA digest again, July 20th, RWA policy and process fundamentals. There you go, RWA all day long. So learn more and sign up at our website at gsa.gov/CES. The goal of the Client Enrichment Series is to engage our audience in workplace topics that contribute to your mission and to your effective management of your real estate and workplace programs. Thank you again and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.